Alright, so it is 2:30, so I'm gonna go ahead and start talking. Um, so I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Sorry if my voice sounds weird. So, hello. You guys are pretty much close to having your 2D games done, hopefully. Before that, I wanted to talk about some things that aren't school related. Early voting started today if you are Texas bound. If you're not Texas bound, then this first little part isn't going to matter to you. Um, I'm not here to tell you how to vote. I am just here to tell you that voting exists and that you should all do it because you are all old enough. Or most of you. I think all of you are. Um, so with that said, if you don't know where to find your early voting, it's if you just type in Google, y'all all know what Google is. Just Google and you'll pop up the Bexar County page and it'll have the early voting information with a map. So remember that they're actually really far and few between. So depending on where you're at, depends on where early voting. If you are early voting, you can early vote anywhere. It doesn't matter being in your district or anything like that. You can early vote anywhere you're at. If you are near Northwest Vista, there is early voting on Northwest Vista. Believe it or not, it's in MLH, so it's in our building that we're generally in. There's also early voting at SAC and at Palo Alto. Otherwise, if you're not near one of those, you're going to have to find it on here. Now, of course, we pretty much all know, who our presidential candidates are. However, you may not know who the individual candidates for like our district or your district or Texas in general are. I just wanted to share Vote 411. They don't have information on every candidate. However, they do have a bunch. And if you actually enter, yeah, you got to enter your address and everything. They'll literally pull up all of the races that are currently going on, so all the people that you're going to have to vote on, and they'll give you different things that they've said on topics that are related specifically to the thing that they are yeah, that they're currently in their election for. So it's a great place to get that. Just remember, and they'll actually like send you your ballot and everything, so they'll send who you've picked, and that's really great, especially because it gets a long list. So for my area, there's 22 different elections going on currently. For other areas, it's more. For other areas, it's less. But there's 22 in my area. Um, that being said, you cannot take a cell phone to the polling place. So you have to write down your information. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel about voting. Voting is super important, guys. Um, both on the local stage and on the national stage. And again, I am not here to tell you how to vote. I'm not here to say, which candidates are better than which candidates. Yeah, I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to inform you that voting exists and please vote. Okay, are there any questions? Yeah, it's pretty easy, and Vote 411 is great because it breaks it down like issue by issue for you. So it's definitely the place. Like my mom used to say, "Oh, just tell me who you're voting for, and I'll vote for them too." And that feels, I don't know, that just feels really skeezy to me. So I always send her Vote 411 and don't give her my actual ballot. Um, but just it's not that hard. It's maybe an hour's worth of looking through things. And you might actually find some things that surprise you. Like, you may actually find that you vibe more with a Republican candidate when you thought you were a staunch Democrat, or the other way around. You may actually find it surprising that a good majority, whether it be Republican or Democrat, want to legalize weed in Texas and then tax the crap out of it because it's a great revenue. Um, so there's a lot of things in there, and we've kind of always been taught that you're either Republican or you're Democrat, and it's a little bit grayer than that. And then of course you've got your third parties, which are also good and have made some leeway. I can't say that Your vote's gonna go like really far voting for a third in Texas, but it is your right to do so. So, yeah. Yeah. I guess with that said, Jo Jorgensen, who is the Libertarian candidate for president, currently in Texas, this morning when I looked at it, she had about 3% of the vote in Texas, which is literally the margin that Trump is leading Biden. So, you know, there's actually a really good, and again, I am not trying to sway your vote one way or the other. If you love Jo Jorgensen, then you vote for her. Go right ahead. That being said, one of the biggest issues with voting third party in our two-party system is the Electoral College. And the biggest way to get around the Electoral College is to vote Democrat, because the Democrats have a long history of trying to completely destroy the Electoral College, which would mean it would be state by state to decide whether they were doing Electoral College or not. That being said, if you like Jo Jorgensen, go right ahead. If you like Biden, go right ahead. If you like Trump, go right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead. If you like one of the other candidates, totally do it. Like, that's the great thing about the political system. It's up to you to decide and up to you to figure out. So, that's my spiel about election. So, vote. Early voting in San Antonio, it looks like it's been between an hour and 2 hours of a wait, and then it's like 10 minutes of you pressing buttons. So, yeah. Okay, so any questions about elections or things like that? Okay, I'll take silence as a no. So today, what I wanted to talk about is, and I'm not going to click into things yet, and I think most of you here are okay. So, I told y'all constructive criticism. There are actually a few of y'all who were either petty or mean or thought you were being funny, but it really came off as mean. So, be careful with that. Like, my biggest kind of suggestion when it comes to criticism is, especially online, it's way easier to be mean online. It's way easier to be like, I hate this and everything is awful about it. Because you don't ever have to see the person. So, before you go to write something, think about, if you were to say this to this person's face, would you flinch if they lifted a hand? Because you think they were going to either slap the crap out of you or punch you. If the answer is maybe to yes, probably not appropriate constructive criticism. That being said, there is a place for being brutally honest, but you can still be honest without coming off as a dick. So, just try and work at that. Because yeah, there's a lot of things that you guys said, or a lot of things that some of y'all said, that came off as incredibly problematic if you're trying to look at it as constructive criticism. In the same way, some people made a big deal about, oh, well, this game isn't finished, or this doesn't have enough mechanics in it for it to be called a playtest. Playtests don't have to have anything. Literally, a playtest could just be a background scrolling without you actually interacting with anything, and it'd still be a playtest, because you're still playing something, albeit just a moving background, and having people test it to see whether they like it or not. So a playtest doesn't automatically mean that it has to have every mechanic in it. It doesn't mean that it has to have everything polished. It's just, maybe sometimes you want to make sure that the walking feels right. So you have a playtest where all it is a character walking around a gray area. Or you want to make sure that all the graphics go together. So you just have like a walking gallery so that you can see everything next to each other and ask the people testing it, oh yeah, does everything go together? Does everything feel right? That kind of stuff. So be constructive. Think of things that you can say that will help them make their game better and not just make you sound mean. Because yeah, we all want to be, or okay, maybe not all of us, but we totally want to be that next, I'm trying to think of something relevant to the current time. Okay, we all want to be the next, like, mean critic. We want to be the person who gets paid to be mean. Because that sounds like a lot of fun. But the reality is, when you're being that kind of mean, you shut people down. And so they don't want to listen to you. They don't want to take the advice. The other thing that I wanted to say is that if more than one person mentioned it in your playtest, that probably means that there was something wrong. That probably means that it's something that needs to be fixed. If they mention it in a positive light, then, like, you're totally golden. But if more than one person mentions something and it's like, is that a bug, or that doesn't work right, or that looks funky, yeah. Yeah. And y'all have, over a day to fix anything that needs to be fixed. So, yeah. 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 So, okay, with that, the other thing that I had to talk about was, and again, you guys are doing more critiques for the turn-in, so remember, I'm not asking you to be butterflies and kittens nice. Like, 100%, if there's something wrong, call it out. But you don't have to be mean about it. And technically, critiques are best when they're sprinkled with a little bit of both. So, maybe you really like the way that this graphic stood out, but the jump is wonky as all hell. Or the sound design is really nice, but literally nothing else works. Or, mix things together. Or, yeah. Well, and so that's the problem, is that y'all are taught that critique means negative. Y'all are taught that critique, the only thing that critique means is that it's negative. Critique does not mean negative. It means feedback. It means positive and negative feedback. So, yeah. Always try and pepper things together. Like, you're gonna find some games where it's hard to say something nice about it. Try to find one thing and then list all your grievances. That's okay. But you should always try and tell somebody one thing that they're doing well. Because if you only ever tell people the things that they're doing wrong, they don't ever realize that they're doing anything right. And so they just think that they're not worth, continuing doing things. And I know some of you are like, well, they just need to get a thicker skin. Or, get good, gamer. But you're in school, and you should be helping each other succeed. Y'all aren't, meant to be these massively great level designers already. Or these massively great game designers and game everything yet. Yeah, so like you say, feedback's helpful when it's inspiring, for current or future. Sorry, the reason why I tend to, like, read these out is because, since anybody who's watching the recording, and it looks like that's at least half the class this time, they don't get to see what I'm reading or what you guys say to me because I have that muted through OBS. But yeah. So it's definitely good to look at the positives. It's really good to look at the positives because it also says, hey, if I continue this project, that's not the things that I need to focus on. I need to focus on these other things. So, just kind of temper your negative and your positives together. In the same way that you really shouldn't ever have something that's 100% positive. Like, you can make the best game ever that you are totally fangirling or fanboying over, but there's still going to be that one thing that bothers you. Maybe that one pixel that doesn't look right, or that one thing that just doesn't fit, or you can't stand the way that, I don't know, the cat girl protagonist goes, yeah, all the time. Like, there's always going to be that one thing you can't stand. So always point that out, because the reality is that generally if it bothers you, it bothers more than just you. So maybe later down the line, the dev would be like, okay, so let's give them an option to either change the pitch of the voice or to completely just not have that voice. So things like that. So you never know. So yeah, critiques. Constructive. That's the word, constructive. Okay, so with that all out of the way, the last thing I want to talk about, the thing that you have due next week. because there is no rest for the wicked, especially since you guys don't have spring break. Um, we're going to look at this one that says 3D games ideas. So, for the second half of the course, you're making a 3D game. And basically, because you guys already know how to make things in 2D, you can start doing stuff in 3D. Especially if you just wanted to start like setting up your menus and things like that, you could 100% do that because that's exactly the same. Um, and believe it or not, walking and things like that is not that much more difficult in 3D than it is in 2D because 3D already has some things built in for it. So it has walking built in for rigid body as well as a character controller. Yeah, so walking's not an issue. It's when you want to make something that's not, well, even when you want to make something that's not walking, there's like vehicle controllers and things like that that are kind of built in or you can find. So we have a 3D game. If you guys have talked to people who have taken this class in the past, depending on the professor, depends on whether they force people to be in a group or not. Especially because we are completely online. I don't want to force anybody to be in a group that they don't want to be in. And because we are online and I don't know where everybody is located or what your schedules are going like, 100%, and even if we were in physical class, I would never force you guys to be in groups because, yeah, that's for your game sim. Yeah, getting group experience is great, but that's really for game sim. So, it does make your life easier if you're working in a, okay, it can make your life easier if you're working in a group because you can kind of divide and conquer. The thing with the group thing is that everybody has to write at least one script. So don't think, oh, if I'm in a group, I can get out of coding because I'm an artist. Nah, it doesn't work that way. You all have to write a script. But, so for next week, what I need for you guys to turn into me, or turn into everybody, is you're going to, oh wow, I didn't actually say comment on any of this stuff. Did I? Oh yeah, you will. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you are going to come up with 2 ideas for a 3D game. You're gonna write the major mechanic, the theme, how doable is it in the time left, what do you see as obstacles, and what do you still need to learn. And sometimes those are the same, sometimes those are different. They're not meant to be trick questions, as a side note. I really try hard never to make anything a trick question for y'all. But, so, like, a foreseeable obstacle may be, I'm juggling game sim, so I don't know if I have time to make all the assets I want to make. But that's not something that you still need to learn. You maybe it's like, oh, well, I still need to learn how to make this attack mode or something. Or scripting. Because scripting is always a thing. And then you'll need to comment and critique on at least 3 other people's ideas. And what do you like, dislike? What would you like to see them add or refine? If you think they're doable, and what you think are the foreseeable obstacles, and is there anything that the original poster missed that they think they still need to learn? And I've got this big thing down here. If you'd like to work in a group, mention it in your post because, yeah, that way you guys can kind of, because I'm not going to assign you groups. I'm not even going to, that's you guys to figure out. If you guys do decide to make a group, message me, let me know. Up to 4 people. What I'll do if you guys do make groups is I'll make you guys separate voice channels inside of here. But you can also make your own Discord or talk about it your own way, however you want to do it. So yeah, so just message me, let me know that you guys are going to be in groups. Again, it's up to you. Groups are up to you. But that's for y'all to kind of correlate and corresponding, and like if you want, you can post, or I can make a new channel that's like looking for groups. But yeah. And then if you're curious as to what we're actually learning for the next part of the semester, because you're like, because like I told you, once you have 2D down, you're pretty close to having 3D down. We're not going to learn as much coding, believe it or not. We're going to learn a lot of extra things that Unity has to make your life easier, including some very simple AI stuff. So if you're wanting to know, like, whether we're going to learn skills that are going to work for a game that you're wanting to build, we're going to talk about 3D controller, 3D animation, blending your animations together, importing animations, importing models, Pro Builder, which is a really cool function that lets you actually model inside of Unity. And then you can export them for texturing. They're really simple models, like don't think like models, but it lets you build houses and floor plans and things like that without batting an eye. And has built-in stairs, including a spiral staircase. We'll also look at the other things that come with Pro Builder that are ProGrids and what's the other? ProBrush. So ProGrids actually lets you snap everything together, so it kind of creates sort of how we were doing with the tile 2D map. It kind of creates that in 3D for you, or in whatever axis set you want. So that makes snapping things and putting things together like a lot easier. And then ProBrush is a simplified version of, well, it's not really simplified, it's a different version of a terrain brush, so you can kind of sculpt inside of Unity, because why not? Terrain Builder is exactly like it says. You get to make terrains, including trees and grass and all sorts of beautiful things. That is one of the things that your system, if you have an older system that's having trouble with Unity, it will have problems with. So if you are having problems, again, with the 3D stuff, if you are having problems, please let me know. Because 2D is relatively simple on your machine. 3D is a whole nother ball game, because it's like running a game, like a full-fledged AAA game, plus modeling software, plus Unity all at the same time. So, because you've got lighting and all sorts of other stuff. So, we'll talk about lighting, we'll talk about shaders and materials. However, I am not going to teach you how to code shaders. Y'all can ask Tyler about that. He wanted to write a shader, and I kind of laughed at him, and then showed him how a shader would be written. Yeah. Shaders are really cool. They're awesome, but they require lots of effort, and you can find a lot of them for free all over the place, so yeah. We'll talk about NavMesh, which is navigation system, so it basically bakes a navigation system, and it says, hey, you can only walk in this area. What's cool about that is it also says, hey, my enemies can only walk in this area too, and it can also help direct your enemies so that your enemies kind of do a seek and find. And that's actually what we'll do, is I'm going to provide you guys kind of the basic assignment set. So the way that we did Betty for the first half of the semester, the second half of the semester we're kind of going to do the same thing, where we build up on a project, and it's going to be building a house. So you guys are going to build a floor plan using Pro Builder. I give you guys a bunch of furniture assets for you guys to populate inside of there and to add. There's already textures made. So you put the textures on everything, you'll put the lighting in, you'll bake a nav mesh, and then the whole point is for you to try and escape your house before the enemy catches you. So it's kind of like a hide and seek kind of game, and you're going to point and click to get through your house. So that's kind of what we're going to do for the next 8 weeks, probably closer to the next 6 weeks, 5 weeks, to give you guys more time to do things. And Cinemachine and Timeline will be 100% on your own, but I've got documentation for that. That's going to be during Thanksgiving week. So technically we only have one class that week anyways, and I know 90% of you aren't going to show up for that anyways. So that'll be extra credit, and then it'll be work week, and you'll be done. Okay, so are there any questions about that? About making groups, about what I'm looking for in your 3D games, about oh, and if you guys start clicking around in here, like if you come into this one, you're gonna start seeing that there's actually lectures up. So if you wanted to get a head start, or you don't want to talk to me anymore, for most of the weeks, there's a lecture from last year already included. Not enough people would be able to play a VR game, and VR games, I mean, they're not hard, but they require a lot of extra coding and things like that, and shader sets and things like that to actually render and work well. So, not enough people would have headsets. I don't have a headset, and VR games make me incredibly sick. So, no to VR games. But so yeah, so a lot of these weeks are gonna have a lecture already included. Um, some of them are pre-recorded, some of them are the actual live lecture from last semester. It just kind of depends. So, okay. And again, quizzes exist. Quizzes will start existing again in, I think, 2 weeks. Don't think we have one this week. We have one this week. Yeah. So, October 29th is when your first quiz will come back up. Oh, and midterm grades are due on the 19th, so you can sort of. You can use Unity Collab, which I hate. There's a lot of people that really enjoy Unity Collab, but I cannot stand it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to use GitHub with your projects. That's what I use for ours. The big issue with both of them is that you can't be working on a scene at the same time that somebody else is. So one of you can be in one scene, one of you can be in another scene, and that's fine and dandy, but you can't actually physically work on the same scene at the same time. So, yeah. So kind of. Insofar as, yeah, you can share it and it's easy to download between each other, but as in working on the same part of it at the same time, no, but you can work on different parts at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, so like that's how we control ours. Like if I go to, and depending on whether you're a programmer or not, depends on whether you're going to use, okay, if you've had Scott, he will tell you that GitHub desktop is like the devil, etc., etc. Don't use it, but we like using it. So basically, it just, you push and you pull things between each other, and I'm going to talk about that next week, I think. Next week's also going to be a pretty simple week, so I'm going to give you guys more time to think about your games, more time to do your task list, things like that. But so yeah, we'll talk about version control, which is Unity Collab or GitHub. There's a few others you can use, but I like GitHub, and as students you guys can get the GitHub student package, which gives you private repositories and all sorts of other stuff. And yeah. But I definitely like over Collab, because if you don't have internet, Collab actually errors out 100% and it won't let you work on your game. So GitHub, it literally, you download the stuff to your system and then you upload it to the cloud, and then somebody else downloads it to their system and then uploads it back to the cloud, and that's kind of how that works. Okay. Any other questions? Also, I guess, but midterm grades, they post the 19th. So if you have anything late that you are trying to get to me, get it to me by Friday. If you don't get it to me by Friday, it's going in as a 0 so that I can get my grades in on time, because I don't know that I've had this conversation with y'all. But I don't know which class I had it with. But if I don't get grades on time, I get fired. Like, that's basically how that works. And I like this job and would like to keep this job. So, that's how this works. Yeah, so get everything to me by Friday if you can. Also, if you're still not sure about kind of what you're doing or what you're wanting to do, as far as what 3D games kind of work, this one right here, this one that's due next week, this week, the 19th, Unity tutorial, John Lemon's Haunted Jaunt, is a really good example of a really basic and easy game that you guys can 100% base a game off of easily. It's kind of about him trying to not be detected by ghosts. It's cute. It's really simple. It's cute. and it provides all the assets for you if you're going to build it with them. I do suggest for this one, I think this one's a little bit on the longer side, although they're all kind of on the longer side, 5.5 hours. But it's really simple, and like I said, it's got all the assets for you. It's really cute. It'll even talk about the camera and how to pop up some different things, some different types of enemies, and of course audio, and then how to make it. So you guys already know kind of how to make it, but this will show you some different stuff with audio and things that you maybe don't know yet. Okay. Questions, wants, desires, needs. Alright, I'll take silence as a no. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay, so midterm's not the worst thing in the world to fail. You will get a nasty note from, like, the administration, but as long as you're passing at the end, it's not... nobody will ever see your midterm grades. So... yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, so you guys know where to find me, how to talk to me, how to get a hold of me. Your games are due tomorrow at midnight. We won't have class on Thursday because I'm giving you that time to do your playtests. And they are due that day at midnight because, again, I have to grade everything and do everything along with my other classes by Monday. I think I have to have everything turned on Sunday, but by Monday. So, you know where to find me. I am here. I'm going to probably run real quick to the kitchen and grab a sandwich, but I am here for you guys for the rest of the class time. I'm also here pretty much the rest of the evening. I'm sorry if any of you guys were trying to or needed to get in contact with me yesterday. Yeah, I wasn't here. So, the tutor is also available currently, Derek, and if you go over to the Zoom or the 3D game programming tutoring NVC channel, if you guys don't have it, I will link it. Hold on. Why is this so hard? Invite people. Why couldn't I use that? Invite link, expires never, link, copy. Okay, if you don't have it, this is the tutoring Discord. Basically, you can ask questions there. There's also a work in progress. Some of you guys are there because I see you guys there pretty often. So on and so forth. And you can then... yeah, they'll link you over to the Zoom, and basically they'll put you in a Zoom room waiting for him. Or you can ask me questions. Yeah, I hope to see amazing things tomorrow, or today, or whenever you guys turn your stuff in. Some of you already started doing that. Remember that you have to make a video, so that takes time. Alright, so with that said, I will leave you be to work for the rest of the time, and yeah, so get to it.